have to say, so far the highlight has been meeting Austin and Stephen. I had heard only positive things about both of you, but to to meet you in the flesh really is fabulous. So thanks for taking on the lead of an awesome company that I've been with for 31 years. Is that when Nutrishare started? Yeah. I have been on TPN for almost 35 years. And what happened to me was I was 33 years old, 20 weeks pregnant. And one night, I said to my husband, I'm in so much pain. You have to take me to the hospital. So we go to emergency and they check me out and they go, she is really healthy. Nothing wrong here. So they put me in a room. Sometime the next day, I went into shock. They decided to do exploratory surgery and they found that my small gut was gangrene. So I actually have been born with fetal malrotation, but no one knew it. So I just happened to have 33 really healthy years accidentally. Normally, if you have fetal malrotation, your guts will twist up when you're crawling or just moving around, but that didn't happen to me. It was the pregnancy, I think. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. So a couple of days later in ICU, the fetus miscarried. And I stabilized, came to the med center and got a Hickman catheter placed. And the rest is history. So what I have is half my duodenum attached to the lower 2/3 of my colon. I was originally told I'd never eat or drink again, but we were all originally told one thing or another that's maybe not necessarily true. I do eat. But the one rule I would say is don't make any rules, because the very first year I could not eat potatoes. That was the food I couldn't eat. I would just get totally constipated for days. And so I said, okay, potatoes are out, not eating potatoes. And maybe 3 years later, I tried potatoes again and somewhat tolerated them. And now I eat potatoes all the time. So it really changes, and just, you have to kind of learn to really listen to your body and try new things and not get frustrated. Easy to say in hindsight, but I will tell you the first 2 or 3 years I was on TPN was nothing short of a torture test. I was nauseated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I remember a couple times walking out into my backyard going, okay, whoever's up there, you better start listening to me because I just can't go on like this anymore. And miraculously, the very next day, I'd feel just a tiny bit better. Probably one of the more significant things that happened to me, and I was trying everything. I had a great TPN doctor at the med center. He was fabulous. I would call him, he'd say, come on in, Sally, we can take some blood and try and figure out what's wrong. Although he knew there was nothing he could really do for me. This was major healing that just had to happen. And, but he was so supportive. I mean, I look back on that and I just laugh at how much we went through together, which is one of the silver linings of this whole thing. The people you meet, the whole Nutrishare team of people that you meet, the family, the other TPN patients, the community of experts out there, it's humbling and it's inspiring. And I really believe that in life, you don't become who you're supposed to become without going through what you need to go through. Hard stuff is hard to go through, but it teaches you so much about what's important and who you are and what life means and everything else, that in a way, once you get through it, you say, oh, that's worth it. I can't be who I am without having had all these experiences. Somebody in some college speech once said, it's more dangerous to have a life of ease than a life of challenge, because you really won't accomplish what you need to accomplish. So anyway, having that philosophy and believing all that makes this whole thing so much easier. I will say the other little tidbit of advice I got was from a fortune cookie. Way back in the beginning, I said, I'm going to try eating a fortune cookie. Everything was experimental for the first year. I'd eat a soda cracker and I'd be sick. I'd eat a piece of toast and I wouldn't, or vice versa. And it was inconsistent and it was just, misery. But when I got this fortune cookie, I don't remember what the fortune cookie did to me, but I do remember the fortune, which I still have pinned up on my wall. And the fortune was nature, time, and patience are the three great physicians. And I just went, oh, I get it. If I give this enough time, nature will heal itself. And I just have to be patient, which truer words were never spoken. I mean, if I look back over this whole thing, for 10 years, that was the truth. I had to be patient. Everything was really inconsistent. But now I would say I'm healthier than a lot of people my age. Probably because I get great nutrition. Probably because I exercise every day outside in nature. I think that's just totally critical for me. I'm so thankful to live in California where I can be outside every single day. Just for some of you that might be new to TPN, I will tell you that a lot of improvements have been made over these 30 years. When I came home from the hospital, I came home with this gigantic pole-mounted pump that plugged into the wall, had 4 hours of battery backup. And if you needed to use the bathroom at night, you got up and unplugged this thing and threw the cord over the pole and rolled through the house to get to the bathroom. I was living in my garage at the time because my husband and I had just started building a house and we were sort of illegally camping in our garage. So it was all very unusual, but it worked. And we would lose power all the time. I live out in the country. So the 4 hours of battery backup didn't quite cut it. So I remember back in the day, the TPN would come into a chamber and there was that roller clamp on the line. And so you had to try and guess how many drops of TPN were getting into your chamber so you could drip feed your TPN. That was almost always a disaster. I mean, you'd wake up a couple hours later going, oh, that went in way too fast. The lipid was always in a separate container in a jar, and you had to piggyback it into your line. And same thing, you gravity fed the lipid. And I'm sure I took the lipid in way too fast on many an occasion. Okay, so when I'm in long and short, look how much better it is now. I mean, we have these fabulous little tiny pumps that are totally portable and rechargeable batteries, and you can travel so easily with that. The other thing that's really changed is information, and that's changed for the world. I mean, fortunately for me, my husband's a veterinary pathologist, and he had access to medical journals online back in 1988, but none of us did. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have smartphones. And so to find out, anything about what's a Hickman catheter, what is short bowel syndrome, what are they talking about? It was really hard to get information. Fortunately, like I said, I had an outstanding doctor at the med center who often, this is probably why we had such a strong relationship. He would often say to me, Sally, I really don't know. I'll try and get a team together on that question and get back to you. And it was often, we were all searching for answers. And now I feel like there's just a wealth of information out there. Some of it's not totally accurate, but welcome to the information age. Anyway, all in all, I would say this has been a very successful journey. I really, really appreciate the loving care I've received from Nutrishare they are my go-to people. If I have any issues, I first call Nutrishare and pass it by one of the pharmacists there and say, what about this? I will say that after losing that baby, I decided, okay, I have a very compromised body and I'm not going to, do anything extraordinary to get pregnant. So when I turned 40, I sat myself down and said, Sally, you're not going to have kids in this lifetime. Get over it. And, I said, okay, I've got to just move on. And I was very involved with volunteer activities and working part-time and kind of focused my life around that. And thought, yeah, it's pretty good. I have a lot of freedom. So 3 years later, my husband is from Australia and his father was in heart failure. So we took a trip down to Australia in the fall of 1987 whatever it would be, 11 years later, 98, I guess it was 98. And I came back from that trip and I just felt horrible. I felt like, okay, I can't travel that far anymore. I'm so dehydrated. So I start taking hydration fluid every day for 3 or 4 days, and I'm just getting sicker and sicker. So I said, wait a minute, I kind of feel like I'm pregnant. So I take a home pregnancy test and it's negative. So then I say, okay, I got to call the doctor, call my regular guy in Davis. And I go to him and he kind of checks me out and he says, there is no way you're pregnant. He said, you have endocrine problems. And I said, okay, well, got to get to the bottom of this. So in order, as many of you know, if you ever have to see a specialist, it might take 2 or 3 months. So now it's like the week before Christmas. And I get this appointment with the endocrinologist and he says, Sally, I'm sending you over for an emergency ultrasound because there's something going on here. And I look exactly like I look right now, fairly slender. Anyway, go for the emergency ultrasound and the OBGYN says, when was your last period? And I said, it was back in July. Now that you might just say, well, duh, but it wasn't unusual for me to miss many months. So I was very irregular. And he goes, well, looks like a perfectly healthy 20-week-old fetus to me. Wow. So 11 years later, I picked up right where I left off. And so, of course, I immediately knew it's going to be a little girl, and it was. And she's now 23 years old, my daughter, Anna. So I've traveled extensively throughout the world. I have had a baby on full-time TPN. So if any of you have any questions about any of those things, I'm happy to talk about this stuff. For me, it's been thanks to me and my huge team of support, many of whom are in this room, and my husband, hugely supportive. I've been very successful on TPN. So thank you.